Colonel Porcher Taylor, United States Navy and United States Army. Colonel Taylor served in all three wars, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. One of the last surviving veterans in this country that was in all three wars. 97 years old today, he's still alive, and he entered the military in 1943 at 18 years of age. He went into the Navy, served in the Navy in World War II, served in the Army in Korea and in Vietnam, and he was with the 25th Regiment, 14th Infantry in Vietnam as a major, retired as a full colonel. And he was the first African-American officer that was appointed as a full colonel at Fort Jackson, South Carolina. So I can go on and on about him. What a wonderful story. I interviewed him February 15, 2007, Petersburg, Virginia. And he has his hat. I just love the guy. Just a totally amazing guy. Going to have an introduction, a short introduction after this video of a news program that he was on, because he was with the Tuskegee Airmen, one of the few Tuskegee Airmen that's still alive. Folks, that's rare. Now, I wish I would have talked to him about that during this interview, but I was focused on Vietnam at the time and interviewing Vietnam veterans, which he tells a tremendous story. I noticed my Vietnam films are getting a lot of views, and so should the Korean War, the Forgotten War, and World War II, folks. We gotta give equal time to all of these, but I know a lot of the people watching like the Vietnam stories, and that's cool. Folks, I wish you could walk in my shoes. I really do. This has been an amazing project for 20 years. I'm trying to produce a film called Capturing Courage on Camera. I did one 10 years ago. This is going to be an updated one with an interview with me. Hopefully we're going to do it for my 20-year anniversary, which is next February 2023, of the work that I've done over the years, all the interviews. My work's become bittersweet, seriously, losing all these veterans. But I'm glad I have their stories, and I did not interview these veterans to release their entire stories on this channel. Years ago, I interviewed them for bits and pieces that were included in documentaries that I produced. They're all on my Voices of History channel. Folks, I love my audience. It's a growing audience, and those of you that are faithful to watch these, thank you. You know who you are. I'm talking to you right now. Those of you who have helped sponsor my work, thank you. I want to thank Brandon Glidden. Brandon is one of my biggest sponsors. He is so excited, folks. He's so excited, chomping at the bits to get this story out. He sent me a message the other day, said, "Who is this Colonel Taylor?" I had a little 1-minute video on my Voices of History channel, and Brandon was so excited. So Brandon, this is for you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and all the people that are going to hear about Colonel Taylor, the young and the old. Folks, we need to educate our younger people as to what has happened and why we have our freedoms. They were born in a free country, but do they really know why they're free? That's where these stories come in. That's why it's so important, and many of you have said these should be mandatory showing in all schools. So I would encourage you again, folks. I hope it doesn't sound like a broken record, but I need your help. I ask for your support of this work in the form of a sponsorship of one of the veteran stories, or as a donation. It'd be greatly appreciated. I don't monetize these videos. I don't sell commercials. That's not right. We ought to respect these men and women who have served our country and are serving our country today, and the freedoms that we have and we're fighting for in our own country today, the same freedoms that these veterans fought for in foreign styles. So I would encourage you to please consider becoming a sponsor or donating to this work. There's information in the video description underneath the video. Read that information, and in the comment section, it's the first comment as you watch the video. Okay, folks, some of you like commenting. I want to let you know I have to approve all my comments, so you may comment. It may not look like it went through, but it did. I just have to approve it. That weeds out all the flakes out there that just pick. Okay, we want the real people out there that really want to learn and aren't so picky. So, okay, so if you'd like to become a sponsor, or you can go to my website, larrycapello.com. That's enough. I said too much. Colonel Taylor, we love you. You're still alive. I salute you, sir. Thank you for your service to our country and the story that you told me over 15 years ago in Petersburg, Virginia. So, folks, share this video. Subscribe to this channel. Let's keep this thing going. God bless you.
Should I look?
Well, you look young on camera. You look good.
Look
You just
at-
look right at me.
Look at you,
Yes,
not the
sir.
camera.
You're
Okay.
gonna look right at me, off camera here, so. How old are you now?
Well, I don't normally tell my age, but you do the math. I was born in 1925,
Okay. What year did you go to Vietnam?
1967.
And obviously you had been in combat before that, so tell me where, 67 you said?
1967.
And you were in the Army.
Yes.
What was your rank at that time in Vietnam?
I was a major when I first went to Vietnam.
And did you command a company of troops? Tell me what your job was in Vietnam.
Well, I had a couple of jobs. When I was down with the 25th Division and the 14th Infantry at that particular time, I was the battalion executive officer. And I left there. I got promoted out of a job. I was promoted to lieutenant colonel. So they took me out of that place, which was in Cu Chi in Vietnam, and I went to Tan Son Nhut Air Force Base up in Saigon.
So what was the mood of the country at that time when you went over there? I mean, were people in support of what the troops were doing over there?
You mean people back here in this country? Not really. It was an unpopular war. Of course it was.
Describe that. Why do you say that?
I say that because people say that. I don't. I've always felt that whenever a country is in distress, no matter where it is or who it is, America always comes to their aid. And that's exactly what we did for South Korea, of course, against the North Koreans. And I always thought I would have to be a part of that. That goes back to my days in the Navy during World War II. I felt that, hey, this thing has started. Someone is doing something wrong to this country, my country. No matter how badly that my country were treating Afro-Americans during that particular time, I knew I had to go. And I've always kept that patriotic spirit through 3 wars and 2 services.
So you fought in Korea and in Vietnam.
Yes, that is correct.
And what did you experience in Vietnam as far as any combat? Did you have any combat over there?
Yes, we had 2 operations that I participated in. And for the life of me, I could not tell you the name of them because they got crazy names. I can just tell you where it was. It was in Cu Chi, in Tay Ninh province, in the Boloi Woods, Hobo Woods, we called it at that time.
You were in command of an infantry company, a regiment, or what?
No, I was still the battalion executive officer at that time.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So did you have interaction with a lot of the troops there, or did you guys?
Oh, absolutely.
What do you remember
Great.
about that?
Great bunch of guys. Hey, good soldiers. And don't ask me to compare the soldier today with the soldier then. I won't do that. But they were good soldiers. Very responsive, very patriotic.
Did you lose men under your command in Vietnam?
Yes, indeed. Unfortunately. And one particular incident that I really didn't want to talk about, but I can tell you about it because I'm not going to name the units that were involved. My unit was involved, the Golden Dragons, 14th Infantry. And this was friendly fire. We lost a lot of people, and I've got a picture there to show you something in reference to that, because when we found out about it, this unit that was in the area before we got there, right near Cu Chi, a minefield was set, friendly minefield. The unit left, didn't mark it, so my troops stumbled into it. And of course, a lot of folk got killed. I can remember this sergeant that died in my arms. Never shall forget that. He had lost both of his legs. And the only thing he was really concerned about, he was dying in shock, both legs gone. He was saying, sir, do I still have my family jewels? I don't know whether you can put that on tape or not, but you know what I mean by that. And at the first time, that I lied to one of my soldiers. I said, "No, son, you're going to be all right." And of course he was, and he died right there in my arms. I don't like to tell that one, but friendly fire happens all the time, all the time. And I call it friendly fire, but it was a minefield. Same difference, same result. Let's move on quickly, will you? Move on quickly.
Well, we'll probably bounce around a little bit. In Korea, what was your rank and what was your responsibility in Korea? And where were you in Korea?
In Korea, I was the 27th Infantry of the 25th Division. I was the first lieutenant at that time. I was the company executive officer, Company K. I was promoted to captain after we moved from Korea to Hawaii. I was promoted to captain, but I was the executive officer in Korea.
And you saw combat in Korea?
Yes, we had a couple of skirmishes. And
What years were you in Korea?
well, I was in Korea 3 different times, 10 years apart each, 1953, 1963, 1973.
So 53
Different job.
meaning the Korean War.
That is correct.
Yeah, so,
That started it.
and we're fighting the Chinese, basically, right?
Yeah, you know, and you asked me that question. I never faced the Chinese. I just knew about the Chinese. I just knew about some of those skirmishes other than that.
So where did you see the most combat? In Vietnam, World War II, or Korea?
I would say Vietnam. Mm-hmm.
Well, you know,
But in the Navy, of course, now World War II is different kind of combat. Much different.
Okay, well, there's a good question there. Tell me, since you've been in all 3 wars, tell me what was different in Vietnam that you didn't experience in World War II, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm. Well, in Vietnam, racial immigration was just beginning to take hold. So that made it completely different than my Navy experiences in World War II. Completely different. Other than that, war is war and war is hell. All the same. All the same. You kill the enemy or he kills you. That's what it really amounts to. Whether it's the Navy or the Army, a boat ship or not a boat ship.
What about the actual combat? It was different in Vietnam than World War II, right? You had a known enemy, defined, uniformed enemy. In Vietnam, wasn't it more guerrilla type warfare?
That is correct. That's almost similar to the war that's going on right now over in Baghdad. It's that way. You don't know who the enemy is. There are no lines. The enemy is all around you, and there's no one particular nation that you're fighting. You're fighting a group, scattered groups here and there, guerrilla groups, if you want to call it that. Big difference, but it all adds up to the same thing. As I said, I never shall forget that. You kill or be killed. When you kill your first person, that's hard. Hard. Particularly if you're a Christian, and I am. The rest of them come easy. That's a sad commentary, but that's true. You get to the point that you know you got to survive. Kill him, or he'll kill you, and the numbers add up, and it becomes commonplace. And I'm sure that happens to most guys in combat. In combat, you never worry really about dying. Not really. You only worry about losing a limb, a leg, 2 legs, your arm, or you get injured or that type of thing. And you never think about it until it's all over with. And I'm sure that's happening right now with our young kids in Baghdad, right this very minute. So sad, so sad.
I'm going to jump ahead, but then we'll come back. But,
Okay.
you know, as a veteran of 3 wars and an American citizen, what does freedom mean to you?
Freedom is not free, I can tell you that. This country, I'm an Afro-American. I look at my brothers that fought going all the way back to the Revolutionary War all the way up until right this very minute. They always answered the call. They went into combat willingly, sacrificed their lives, coming back home after the wars, expecting to have equal opportunity and rights, and well, you know the whole bit. And it didn't happen in most of those wars. Only right around Vietnam during that period when my favorite hero, who is President Harry S. Truman, he said there will be no more segregation in the military or at the Defense Department level, period. And if you knew Harry Truman, like I knew Harry Truman, he meant exactly what he said. Roosevelt, President Harry Truman, put out the same kind of executive order. But you know what the commanders in the field said? Most of them, not all. The admirals and the generals said, you know, the hell with this. I do what I want to do out here. Hell with the president. And they said that, some of them. But Harry Truman, you didn't mess with him. He's my hero.
I've talked to some Canadian war veterans, and they said the same thing. They really respected him. You know?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The other big thing he did, of course, when he gave the word to drop the atomic bomb on Japan during that period of time, we saved, I'm sure, 1 million lives. No question about that. Okay, I'm sort of getting off your subject here, but
you're fine.
that just sticks with me.
When we first sat down, you said you wanted to see if I would ask a question about your role, the African American role in the military. What did you want to say about that?
I just wanted to say that the exploits and the patriotism exhibited by Afro-Americans going all the way back, as I mentioned to you, the Revolutionary War, that kind of dedication has been, what word I want to say? Left out is it, but I want to use another word. I can't think of it right now. We were left out of the newspaper. We were left out of publicity, period. Good example is the Siege Museum right here in Petersburg. And that's why I wanted so dearly to establish that on the bottom floor of the museum, Afro-American. You go up on the second floor, of course, you won't see that. You'll only see where Afro-Americans were slaves and so forth, which we were. But that's history, you can't change that. But you gotta say something positive, because there are a lot of positive things that we did, my forefathers. And I got a little part of that action too, and I'm so proud of it. That God spared my life in 3 wars. I'm proud of that fact. But I love this country, don't get me wrong. It's the best there is. No question about it. And it's getting better and better. And let me use poor English here. It's getting gooder and gooder and gooder. No question about it. Mm-hmm.
I don't usually ask this question, and I don't want you to take a lot of time to answer it.
Okay.
What do you think about what's happening today in Iraq?
Well, as I mentioned to you before, when something goes wrong, no matter where it is, in any part of the world, America always comes to the aid. And our dear president, right now, the commander-in-chief, he's still my commander-in-chief, he made a decision to go over there and try to do something about it. So I'm not so sure it's winnable, but at least we're over there, and we're losing a lot of lives, and we're going to lose a lot more. As a matter of fact, I don't want to take too long, as you said, but General Petraeus, who is the new commander, who is replacing General Casey over there now, is a real good buddy of mine. And in fact, he spoke at our Triple Nichols 555th Parachute Convention 3 or 4 months ago out at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. So, as a matter of fact, I had a Tuskegee Airman meeting last night, and I asked the guys to pray for our young men over there, and particularly for the new commander, that he would be successful. He's going to do whatever he can, but it's a religious war, let's face it, and that's been going on for how many years, 1,000 years or more, and that's going to be kind of hard to get in between those two factions. Kind of difficult.
Well, just talking to you for the short time, I look at you and I can tell that you've been through combat experiences, and some are painful to remember. At the time of combat, are you conscious of God and country? Or is it just a matter of survival for the soldiers?
No, that's why we have chaplains in the military to do and sort of soothe over this idea about killing. Killing in wartime is not murder. Even God, Jesus, told what's his name, to go into Canaan and kill every single soul in sight, children, women, the whole nine yards. Joshua, that's what we told that to Joshua. So evidently there is some legitimacy to some war for a cause. So that kind of gets to you. It makes you want to fight. That's your motivation. That's the way you keep good morale, by believing and feeling that, and not thinking that you're on the battlefield and every time you pull that trigger and you kill somebody, it's not murder. It's for the cause. And that helps a lot. And that chaplain is always around. And God bless them. They're great. They're great.
Excuse me. I've got a tickle in my throat. I'm going to get another bottle of water here.
Okay.
Do you want a bottle of water?
No.
I've been kind of fighting a cold here, so.
You need a bottle of rum then.
That probably wouldn't hurt, huh? Okay. Well, obviously, you were a believer back during the war, right?
Absolutely. Still am.
You think that influenced your decisions and your ability to get through those hard times, your faith in God?
Oh, absolutely. You got to have it. You got to have it. You look up, you know and feel and believe if you're a Christian that God is in that foxhole with you. There's no question about that. No question about it.
They say there's no atheists in the foxhole.
You got that right. Absolutely, you're right.
Did you meet people in combat or in situations where you were able to maybe help them get through some of those times because of your faith in God?
Yeah. Well, as a company commander, stateside, I guess I've been a company commander 4 or 5 different times. And my soldiers, I personally counsel them in terms of having domestic quarrels or disagreements with their wives and so forth, or whatever it was. If they had a Christian problem, of course, I would refer that to the chaplain. But yes, I got very, very close with them, and you got to do that.
What's the hardest part of combat?
The hardest part is to see your buddies killed right before your eyes. It's not like, because during my time in combat, the rotation system, you may have different troops just about every day because they're getting killed left and right. And you're not too much attached to them because you haven't had time to. But those that you have been with, in combat with, who perhaps have saved your life many times, who have done great and accomplishing missions, and when you lose one of those, that's just like losing your daughter, your son, or your wife, or your mama. And that's hard. That's very hard. And in fact, some commanders teach, and they did this in Vietnam a lot, don't get too attached to your buddies. Although they're in your same squad or your same platoon, they're your buddies, you're supposed to protect you, protect each other. That's a known fact. But don't get too attached because they may not be here with you tomorrow. And particularly with the officers at the lower level, second lieutenants, their lifespan in combat is, in terms of minutes or perhaps hours in a lot of times.
Why is that?
Because they're the leaders. They're up front. They're calling the shots. They are easily identifiable on the battlefield by the enemy, particularly in the American Army. Other armies, you can't tell who's what, but in our Army, you can because of the insignia they might have, the whole 9 yards.
I heard a lot of times they wouldn't wear the insignia. Is that true, or just a...
You got it. I'll tell you frankly, my basic weapon was a .45. As a company commander or as a battalion commander, I was a special troops commander later on in Korea. I didn't carry that 45. I carried the same weapon, which was a M16, goes back during World War II, M1, an M16, just like my troops did, so they couldn't tell me from anybody else. But they're smart. They can tell who's out there leading and giving those commands and so forth. Mm-hmm.
So what's the Geneva Convention? Did the enemy follow that at all?
No, not at all. Still don't. Mm-hmm. Still don't.
What's the purpose of that then? I mean, it's kind of odd that people,
Well, they're trying to civilize war, and you cannot do that. Now, and I'll tell you right now, everybody's going to break the rules at one time or another. No question about it, because your life is at stake. And you can't be a nice guy. War is not for nice people. And when you're out there on that battlefield, as I said before, you either kill or be killed. You protect your men. As an officer, you swear that you will do whatever you can to protect those guys, and nowadays girls, who are out there fighting. Yeah, big time. Yeah. Speaking of the ladies are doing an excellent job over in Iraq and Afghanistan. Excellent job. Excellent. Although they're not supposed to be in combat units, but, what is a combat unit nowadays? The quartermasters, the ordnance people, signal people, they all fight now.
Do you see any similarities in today's war and Vietnam? I mean, I hear there's comparisons with the news media. What do you think about the news media during Vietnam and what they're doing today?
Well, I don't like to see those embedded reporters, as they call them, looking over my shoulder while I'm dealing with my personnel, my men, giving instructions and giving orders, or even accompanying me out on the battlefield. Don't like that. Don't like that at all. In fact, and whenever they report, most times, the stories are always sort of in keeping with what their editors back stateside want them to report. And as you notice in this war right now, you get nothing but negative. I haven't heard too much about what our troops are doing over there, particularly with the civil affairs part of that, the reconstruction, the building, the helping of the people, providing food, providing supplies and that type of thing. You don't hear much of that. And we're doing that. American soldier, let me tell you, American soldier, when he goes into a country, foreign or not, people love him to death, particularly the little kids, because he has that kind of a heart for them. Over in that part of the country, it's a little bit different because their religion is different, their beliefs are different, and so forth. It's not too good.
Well, it paints a negative picture of what the war's all about, don't you think?
Absolutely,
so
absolutely.
Really, we're fighting the media too. It's like to avoid that brainwashing of
exactly
that war is bad,
Exactly. Let me tell you what I believe our president, why we went over there in the first place. I sort of believe that part of it was a revenge for his daddy when he was the president, that we didn't continue on at that particular time. That's one reason, but I believe the basic reason is because our president is a Christian. I put a lot of trust in Christians, and he believed that we cannot let Saddam, he's dead now, or anybody else in the world become a dictator, because we'll end up like we did during World War II, Adolf Hitler, Benito Mussolini, Hirohito for Japan. Those three guys were going to take over the world. They killed everything in sight, particularly the Jewish people, the gypsies, Negroes during that time, that word Negro, and Bush, no one came to England's rescue until very late in the war, if you remember, and that was because of Pearl Harbor. So he's saying that we cannot let some guy run rampant, or any dictator, without going to the rescue of the people that they're trying to exterminate. I believe that that's the whole thing. He believed that we are the police of the world, that God said so, and perhaps told him so. I believe that.
Have you been to the wall in Vietnam, the Vietnam
Yes,
Wall?
yes.
Can you remember the first time you went there and what you felt? What
I
you-
cried. Because I saw some of my buddies up there, their names. And I saw some of their dependents taking a little shady thing. You know, they do that with that pencil some kind of way up there. That was so sad, yeah. Mm.
How about the World War II or the Korean Memorial? Do they affect you like that too? Are they pretty moving for you to walk through those?
Every time I go to Honolulu, I go out on the Arizona. That boat that was sank, 2,300 people lost their lives on that one day. That's a lot of folk. And just to get on top of the Arizona and still see the oil leaking up, the fuel from the ship, and knowing that down there is 1,300 plus sailors. And the other 1,000 were killed topside. It's kind of hard. I go to Arlington quite a bit, cemetery, and just look at some of the names on there. Thousands and thousands of them out there.
Well, I'm going to lead into another question here. Should I call you Colonel Taylor? What do you want me to call you?
PT,
Say it again.
PT,
PT?
that's what everybody else
Hey.
calls me. Sure.
And your first name's pronounced Porcher?
Porcher,
Porcher
yes.
Taylor. Okay.
Junior, make sure it's the junior. I have a son up
That's right.
University of Richmond.
Tell me what, as a veteran and as an American citizen, what does freedom mean to you? And you said a little bit earlier, but tell me about the price for freedom.
Okay. Freedom to me means exactly what the Bill of Rights says, and that is freedom to say what you want, as long as you don't offend anybody, that type of thing. Freedom of speech, freedom of press, the pursuit of happiness, the whole 9 yards. It's right there in the Bill of Rights. That, to me, is what freedom is, that you can come to this country, and if you got any get up and go about you, you're going to be all right and you're going to be successful. Of course, here again, back during my time early on, segregation, we were denied this kind of treatment. But this country is different now, thank God. You can come here and get those goodies. I call them goodies. Do what you want to do.
Tell me about the price for freedom. What would you tell young people today who don't know about the freedoms or why we're free, about the price of freedom?
Okay, I wrote a book, and I'm going to let you see a copy of it later on after the interview. In that book, I challenge all young people that they owe a debt to this country, first of all. The country owes them nothing. They owe a debt to this country. And I would suggest that once you finish high school, that you either go into one of the military services, try to get an appointment, if you can, to one of the academies, West Point Air Force Naval Academy, or go into one of the national service programs, just for 2 years. You don't have to spend a lifetime there. And that will be a maturing experience for you. It'll make you a man or a woman, whatever. Give you a different aspect on life. It'll make you realize what you want in life. Once you jump out of high school and go helter-skelter, go straight into college, you really don't know what you want to do, so forth. So I would say you should do that and spend at least that time in the service. And if a draft ever comes about, again, don't run off to Canada or someplace like that. Get into the military, serve your term, put your life on the line, because your foreparents did it for you too. They put their lives on the line. We'd still be speaking proper English from the British if it had not been for our good soldiers back during that period of time. So do some service. You owe it to the country. Mm-hmm.
That's good. That's part of why I'm producing this, is to share it with our younger generation. They don't know about the sacrifices that have gone before them. to secure our freedoms.
Hey, that's right. That's right. You know,
Go ahead.
you know, that came up just the other night. Oliver North, you know Oliver North? He was at the Boy Scout fundraiser over in Richmond.
Was he?
And I'm an Eagle Scout. I'm a distinguished Eagle Scout. That has more meaning than people think it does. They're only a handful in the country. Distinguished Eagle Scout, not Eagle Scout. And we were talking about that. He gave a very good speech that night.
He was invited to speak at that?
And he was the main speaker. We had about 800 scouters and guests there.
Do you think he comes for free, or do he just charge a big price to come to something like that?
Well, he's got out 3 or 4 books. So I don't think he's just seeking money. I don't think so. The guy, I always did like him. A lot of people don't like him. But here again, I think he was dedicated to the country. He was dedicated to his job. And his job is nasty. CIA and intelligence. Hey, you kill your own grandmama. That's what you swear to do, basically. And he did his job too well. And when you do that, people don't like it. That's right. In fact, I told him that tonight. I had some pictures taken with him, and I told him that.
You met him, he knows who you are then?
Yes, yes.
Have you been on his story, War Stories?
His? I don't know. I didn't read that last book, but I gave him a copy of my book that night. Yeah.
PT, what else can you tell me about well, just war in general? You already kind of mentioned some things, but I mean, you've gone through, when you came back from World War II, Korea, or Vietnam, I mean, did you talk much about it, or is it something that you didn't want to talk about?
I didn't want to talk about after the Vietnam War, but in terms of the other two, I had no problem with that. The Vietnam War, the people were sort of spitting, actually spitting on veterans that were coming back. And it had nothing to do with race. Of course, I was an Afro-American, but it didn't have anything to do with race. One guy spat on me one day, and I gave him lockjaw, okay? So that was the kind of reception you got after the Vietnam War and after the Korean War. But World War II was different. People loved you to death coming back. It was just a different kind of thing because everyone committed himself or herself to the prosecution of World War II. The other 2 wars were very unpopular, so consequently those people who fought in it became unpopular also.
It's unfortunate. Yeah.
Yes, yes it is. Yes it is.
So tell me a little bit about the homecoming for the Vietnam vets they didn't receive, or you think today they're getting maybe some thanks that they should have received back then?
Well, we've had a couple of outstanding Veterans Affairs directors. Well, I think they're part of the president's staff now. I think the Secretary of Veterans Affairs or whatever. And it's a lot different because most of those guys, in fact, the last one we had, I believe, was he a paraplegic or he had lost a leg or something? I've forgotten his name. But yes, we're beginning to get more benefits now. In fact, we're realizing that, and you can see it in the benefits they're offering now to the serviceman while he's still in the service, and what happens if he's killed, of course. That amount of money has gone up. The pay has certainly gone up. When I came in World War II, the private was making, just prior to that, was $21 a month, then $50 a month. In the Navy, I made $50 a month until I became a petty officer 3rd class, and I made $78. Now a private makes $1,300, $1,400. That's a big jump. It's not a lot of money, but it's a heck of a big jump in what it was. Yes, but you can't pay and buy patriotism. You got to have that thing in you.
Tell me what the American flag means and represents to you.
Means a lot to me. Give an idea, whenever I see anyone trying to degrade my flag. He and I get into a big argument right off the bat. And I always notice how the American flag is displayed. Most people don't realize that it must always be to the right. And I've gotten in some big arguments, particularly with hotels who display the flag. And I go in there and tell them. And some of them appreciate it, and others get mad. Say, what the hell you know about it? I said, because I'm part of this country, and I love that flag. Don't mess with Old Glory. Mm.
Wow. Oh, boy. You said Vietnam was probably the tougher conflict that you were involved with, and when you came home, you didn't talk about it. Why is that?
It was too brutal, really.
How so different than World War II or Korea? What do you mean by that?
Well, I guess World War II was the most devastating. There's no question about that. We could lose 1,000 men a day in World War II, and it was just like that. I don't guess there was no difference in that, but I myself have gotten older, so my attitude and my demeanor and everything else sort of changed. That's where the change comes. Hey, as I say, war is hell. It's hell. And it's just bad.
Are there stories in, maybe not Korea or World War II, you told me the story of that guy dying in your arms. I mean, did that happen one time in your whole career, or did it happen other times, or were there times you were able to help some of the wounded? Like in Vietnam, did you work around the helicopters at all?
Everybody did. Helicopters were a part of your operations, definitely so, particularly in Vietnam, because there were no roads up into the jungles. And that double canopy that they had, you couldn't see anything from the air, hardly. So the helicopters were our primary transportation. And what's the other part of the question now?
Well, just the role of the helicopters in Vietnam and why they were used, and if you had any involvement, insertions, combat assaults, anything like that.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. In fact, that was the way you got into combat. It was very seldom that you went out on a foot patrol. You would do that after you establish a base. Then you would go out on foot patrol. But ingress and egress into that particular area where you are, it's by helicopter, basically. And that was the way in which we got wounded out, of course. That was very, very critical. And I take my hat off right now to those chopper pilots. They flew those dust-offs, we call them. Dust-offs, that's a medical helicopter. Hey, they would go anywhere, take any kind of chances, and they saved a lot of soldiers and sailors.
That's what I've heard.
Oh, yes.
Were you ever involved with medevacs, or were they just things that went around, or did you ever help the wounded get loaded on a helicopter or anything?
Oh,
like
absolutely,
that?
absolutely.
Well, what do you remember about that? Is that still vivid in your mind? I mean, was it like Hollywood shows, all the blood and all the? I'm not after all that, but is it like that?
Yeah, I don't want to do the blood and guts now, but yes, but there's a good feeling that comes over you also. Number one, hey, thank God that chopper got in here in time to evacuate my wounded soldiers. Hey, thank God that soldier probably will be evacuated back to the States. He's done his job. He's done his work. So for those two reasons, it's a happy sort of a situation. And that always knowing that helicopter, dust off, is going to come in there and pull those wounded folk out. I don't care how dangerous it is. And most of all, soldiers themselves. Soldiers are sworn to one another. They don't believe in leaving any dead on the battlefield, or any injured or wounded. We get them. One way or the other. Absolutely.
I've talked to a number of these pilots too. They're incredible people.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
What they did.
Mm-hmm. I remember one instance. Here again, quasi-friendly fire. At Tonkinwood Air Force Base there up near Saigon. We were loading one of the choppers to resupply one of our units. And our S-4 inadvertently didn't tie down the gas cans and the mermite cans that carried water and food. And when the chopper got up in the air, they got juggled around, caused that helicopter to catch fire and burn. So we lost some more people. But those kind of things happen in combat. You lose a significant amount of people from non-combat action, more than most people think. Yeah, we've lost a lot of people in Afghanistan right now from trucks rolling over, all kinds of things like that. But it happened. That's the nature of war.
Did you ever receive any medals or citations for?
One day I got, and I've got a thing of it in there. I got the Legion of Merit, the Bronze Star, and an ARCOM at Tan Son Nhut headquarters in Vietnam. And I have a lot of other mess, you know, campaign medals and all that kind of crazy stuff.
Well, I'm getting towards the end of the interview because I want to have a few minutes to kind of look through
Okay.
some of this. But PT, tell what should the American people remember about Vietnam?
What should they remember? Well, those that felt that we shouldn't have been there in the first place, they should remember that that could happen in America, and there would be no one out there to come to their aid. Those that believe that we should have been there, they should be thankful that we got out with only 38,000 casualties, around that number. Those that took off and went up to Canada and places like that, they should have a second thought in terms of, hey, my buddies died over there, and here I am safe back in this country because my buddies did die for this country, and I should appreciate that. And I guess the general population, civilian population, people who didn't participate directly, they should be thankful too that it didn't happen here in America.
What about our country being divided? World War II, we supported the war effort. In Vietnam, we were divided. Now it seems like we're divided. Shouldn't we support our commander-in-chief?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. In fact, most people are against that war. It's a political thing with them. They're fighting the president, okay? The president could not have done what he did if Congress didn't go along with it. A lot of people don't realize that. Now they're trying to blame the president because he said that there was some mass destruction weapons over there, WMDs or whatever they call, weapons of mass destruction. Everyone else thought that there were also, even our intelligence community. Everybody thought, even Colin Powell thought it. And he's a pretty straight guy. He thought it then. Of course, now he regrets that, but he thought it, and so did everybody else. And if that had been true, that was the cause to go. I always say that. But now the politics are trying to blame it all on our good commander-in-chief.
I'm going to ask you to do one more thing from where you're seated.
Okay.
At the end of my interviews, I always ask for the veteran to give me a salute into the camera. When I tell you from where you're seated, will you do that for me?
Sure. I got arthritic fingers, so the salute's not going to be perfect, I can tell you that.
No, we're not going to judge it. Not judging. So.
I can't get my fingers together.
Okay, right into the camera, PT.
Okay.
Go ahead. Great. I didn't see anything wrong with that salute.
It's wrong, my fingers are all gnarled up.
A special honor given to one of the famous Tuskegee Airmen who's now living in Petersburg. 95-year-old retired Army Colonel Porcher Taylor Jr. is one of the founders of the Howard Ball chapter of Tuskegee Airmen. Members say there's not a day that his efforts to preserve history and honor those who sacrificed goes unnoticed. Terrence Dixon was there as Taylor was given the Lifetime Achievement Award.
I am truly honored to present this to you. Thank you so very much for your continued service.
I may want to cry here.
As he receives the Lifetime Award for the Howard Ball chapter of Tuskegee Airmen Incorporated, retired Army Colonel Porcher Taylor is overcome with emotion.
This is excellent. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much.
The retired colonel and education administrator served his country in both the U.S. Navy and Army across 3 wars: World War II, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War. He became part of the famed Tuskegee Airmen in the 1940s.
He's a true, dedicated, patriotic American. It really meant a lot to him to serve his country.
Taylor has been awarded for many of his contributions, including the Distinguished Eagle Scout Award, an honor shared by former U.S. President Gerald Ford and astronaut Neil Armstrong. But the 95-year-old says receiving this award tops them all.
It's been a long time coming. Porcher Taylor is the one who was the spearhead behind the chapter.
Colonel Taylor was one of the founders of the Ball chapter that was established in 1972 in Petersburg. He named the chapter after the late Howard Ball, a Petersburg native who was a World War II fighter pilot and an original Tuskegee Airman that rose to the rank of lieutenant colonel. In the earlier days, the chapter met at his home.
It was PT's idea, and he got some other military folks on board, and when they drew up the Articles of Incorporation, the address of the organization was 1801 right here.
The group says there's not a day that Taylor's efforts to preserve history and honor those who sacrifice goes unnoticed. He paved the way for the next generation to reach for the skies.
We wouldn't be where we are if it wasn't for Porcher Taylor.
He is very deserving of this award, and long time coming.
Thank you, thank you.
On your side, Terrence Dixon, NBC 12.
Wow, congratulations and looking good, Mr. Taylor, at 95. Well, Tuskegee Airmen Commemoration Day, by the way, is on March 24th. The East Coast chapter will hold a wreath-laying ceremony at the Air Force Memorial in Arlington.
He does look great.